All right, good morning again. I'm always happy to see everyone who stayed for this part. If you've got your Bibles, stay with me in 1 Timothy chapter 6 and 17. We're going to be there. Then we're going to be in Philippians chapter 4. And so the problem with this topic is that it's been abused, and it's still abused, and it's overly abused all over the place. We're talking about what do you do as a Christian with the stuff that you have that we all say that God has given me. And so we're talking about reigning in our lives and bringing everything about our existence, everything about this experience, this physical experience, bringing that under the sovereign reign of God. And so one of the main things that we all deal with is our finances. That's one of the main things that we have to bring under the reign of God, because it is one of the main things that we stumble over. Now, if you're visiting with us this morning and you're thinking, you know what, I decided I'm going to make a big change in life and I'm going to go to church, and lo and behold, every time they're talking about money. Well, rest assured, I'm not talking about money. We're going to get to that sermon, don't worry. That one's coming. And I will say this, as I always do, and I don't know why I feel so compelled to say this. I just do, because it's everything gets so messed up when you get it on TV, even church. And so you've got these guys out there, and ladies for that matter, that are out there preaching this health and wealth prosperity gospel. And the neat thing about it is, or the thing that I think is neat about it as a preacher, is that it always seems to be about the wealth of the preacher. Now, I haven't figured that one out yet, but here's the thing. I'm not trying to get you in any way, shape, or form to give more so that I can have some of it. I've said it before. I don't make a commission off of this. But what I am trying to do is get us to bring our lives under the reign of God. And if we can let go of things like our pride, wherever pride touches our lives, that's going to be better. If we can, if we can bring our, whatever it is under the reign of God, that area of life is going to be better. And so it stands to reason our finances being something that touches everything that we do. If we can present that to God, bring that under the reign of God, and do what God, and be holy because He is holy where it comes to what we have control of, then that aspect of our life will be better. And so the thing I want to look at is, like I said, this is not a sermon about giving. That one's coming. This is a sermon about being content. And so as we listen to this under the umbrella of the empty tomb, and bringing our finances under the reign of God, starts with being content. Now, I've kicked back and forth all kinds of slides, and I'm going to leave that up there because that's the main thing that we need to think about as we go through the passages that I've chosen and the points that I want to make, is that bringing our finances under the reign of God is all about being content. That's where it starts. It doesn't start with being guilty about what we have. It doesn't start with taking inventory of all the things that God has given us and deciding what we can or cannot live without. It starts with taking a holistic approach of our life and being content. And so the thing, and what I wanted to come out of 1 Timothy is in 17, he says, command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant or to put their hope in wealth. That's a pretty basic sentiment that you get throughout Scripture when it comes to the things that we can procure. He says, don't put your hope in what you can produce, what you can stockpile, what you can save up, and what you can manage. He said, don't do that. Don't do that at all. And the reason is not because God doesn't want us to have anything. The reason is because God knows the trap that is set for us in this physical world that will separate us from Him if that's what we are clinging to. Because what he says in 17 starts in verse 3. In chapter 6, verse 3, he says, look, actually in verse 1 of chapter 6, all who are under the yoke of slavery should consider their master worthy of full respect. Put that in the back of your mind, just the idea of anyone who's under slavery should give their master full respect. What are you a slave? First of all, take inventory of your life. What are you a slave to? What do you listen to and do what it says no matter what? Then he goes on to say, if anyone teaches false doctrines, does not agree to the sound instruction of our Lord Jesus Christ and the godly teaching, he is conceited and understands nothing. He has an unhealthy interest in controversies and quarrels about words that result in envy, strife, malicious talk, evil suspicions, and constant friction between men of corrupt mind who have been robbed of the truth and who think that godliness is a means to financial gain. Here's the long and short of what he's saying. It's like, look, don't muddy the waters with all of this nonsense. Let me tell you what exactly this is all about. He says, being godly, but godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. People who want to get rich fall into a temptation and a trap, into foolishness and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. The reason I wanted to start here is because what Paul is telling a young preacher, Timothy, is that warn people against falling in love with the stuff that we have here. The biggest thing he's trying to say is warn people about the trap that you can fall into, the blindness that can come over you when all we immerse ourselves in is what we can procure, what we can save, what we can amass, what we can have. And the trap there is that what started right after the fall, and remember what we talked about a few weeks ago? I said, you know what really entered into the equation right after the fall of humanity is competition. I mean, he even says, he goes, ladies, you're going to be in competition with the men now, and men, you're going to be in competition with each other and this place and all the issues that come up because of the brokenness. And so what he's saying is he's reiterating what happened in the garden. He says, be careful, because the more you pay attention to stuff, the more competition you're going to be in. So he's going to look, and it's going to kill you. I mean, that's what he says. He says, look, if people who want to get rich, and I love that word. I love that word, get rich. You know why? Because other people are rich. I'm not rich. I mean, right? I mean, other people are, And isn't that the truth? You can always find somebody else that's rich. I mean, I imagine if you got in a room, and that's the thing nowadays, the political nonsense that we get to listen to is that the rich versus the poor is our big, that's the big division, or one of the big divisions. And just like in the church, can I just give you a little something for free that I've learned at almost 54 and being a preacher for this long and getting to be in meetings and counselings and all kinds of stuff. When you hear somebody saying anything, whether it's on TV about politics or in the pulpit about God, if what they are saying is sowing seeds of division and an us against them, please stop listening to them. No matter what they say next, don't listen to a word they say. If people are sowing division, they do not have any interest other than their own at heart. Just understand that. If I, as a preacher, am trying to get you to think about others that don't believe what we believe, or go to a different building and do this very same thing under, with a different name, if I'm trying to get you to us against them, those folks, stop listening to me. And if you have anybody political that you're and they're talking about the competing with one another, just stop listening. Because there's evil in that. What God is trying to tell us from the very beginning is that sin is going to not only separate you from sin does not only separate us from God. You know what sin separates? Us from each other. And so he's saying, look, so there's this us against them. There's this, this competition. And the more that we amass, the more competition there are. But getting back to, I love that idea of being rich. I imagine you get rich people, and that's a big thing right now. You get you get the elites of our society together, and you talk about the millionaires. You know who I'm not rich. You know who's rich? Well, the billionaires. I mean, you get Jeff Bezos in a room with Bill Gates and Elon Musk, and they're going to be, Bezos, he's only got 120 billion. Elon Musk over there, he's got 230 billion. Now that guy's rich. No. You really want to see rich people? Just look to your left or your right. We are all rich. We are all, everyone in this room is living in the top 10% of the world. I mean, the world. So don't think for one second that when he says when he says things like, where's he saying things? Hold on a second, I lost my spot. He says those who want to get rich. He's talking to us. That's who he's talking to. We are all those people. So what does it do for us to come here and try to understand how do we bring our finances, our lives under the reign of God? How do we experience contentment? Well, the first thing I want you to do is look over in Philippians chapter 4. Where he says in verse 10, I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you've renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you have been concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I'm not saying this because I'm in need. Remember that part? For I have learned to be content. The reality of our lives is bringing our finances, bringing our, all the lives, all of our choices, all of everything under the reign of God, is learning how to be content. And learning how to be content isn't getting more, as the American dream. Learning to be content isn't getting less, like the Stoics or the Buddhists, that nothing matters. Learning to be content is understanding that God has a plan for us, that God has a desire for us to experience Him in this life. That's what He wants for us. He wants us to experience Him more and more. Well, how do you do that? How do you experience more and more of God in this life? The best way that I've learned how to do that is spending time with Him. Bringing God into the equation no matter what we're doing. When it comes to our finances, bringing God into the equation is asking some very specific questions. We're going to get to some of those questions. First thing that we have to understand is that one thing that Paul understood was, I'm not in need. How many of us can say that this morning? I'm not in need. I tell you what, let's do a little exercise. Repeat after me. After me. I am not in need. Okay, that's the first thing, that's the first step. Being able to say that. I'm not in need. Now, do we need a history lesson on what was going on in Paul's life at that point? I mean, if anybody could need anything at any time, it would be this guy right here. I mean, he's shipwrecked, prison, all kinds of things, doesn't know where, his next support, doesn't know where a lot of things are coming from. He's trying to pastor this disjointed kind of crazy movement that's going on in the first century, and he, in this situation, I'm not in need. I don't need anything. How many of us, now I know we all just said it, but how many of us can go through this entire week without needing a single thing? The first part of learning to be content is understanding what a need really is. Paul says, look, I'm not in need. He says, I'm not in need. I have learned to be content. This is a process, but it can also be a fixed point in history. Learning anything, I mean, think about this. Remember when you learned how to ride a bike? Remember when you learned how to ride a bike? For some of you guys on the front row over here, it probably was, maybe last week. I mean, maybe, I think Chase is still working on that. Remember when you learned how to ride a bike? It was a process, wasn't it? But then there was this one point when it's like, oh, I'm stumbling. And then all of a sudden, boom, it just clicks and you're just riding. You're riding around, you're taking turns, you're pedaling on, there's a process, but then all of a sudden, or I guess for the English people, for suddenly, I guess you got to say. And then, it's just process, then suddenly, now I can do it. That's what he's saying. Learning something is a process, but it's a fixed point in history. And he's saying, I've learned to be content. We have to be people willing to learn and go through the process towards contentment. Have you ever thought about it like that? Is that, maybe, if I want to be more generous, and that's where we're going to go. That's what our sermon, if you're visiting, you want to come back to hear more of this, the sermons that we're going to be talking about, I'm going to be preaching about giving, is not about, hey, nope, you need to give more, tell me the number. No. It's all about how generous do you want to be? And I'll give you a hint, a little cheat sheet. Generosity, read about what the Bible says about greed. It's some of the worst stuff you're going to read. It's some of the scariest things when it comes to, the condition of our soul. And the only antidote to greed, the only antidote to this unsatiable desire for more, generosity. Generosity is the only, not that you don't want more, but your motives change. Generosity is the only antidote for greed. Wanting more is not greedy. Wanting more isn't greed. Your motives are what determines if it's greed or not. Because I want more so that I can send that out into the world. If I want to make $1 million a year so that I can continue to live like I am now, but I can build so many more houses in Honduras. I want to make more money now so that I can do more on behalf of the kingdom. That's what he's talking about. The only antidote for greed is generosity. He says, I've learned to be content. There is a sufficiency to my life. And then he gives this secret. There is a sufficiency to my life, whether I live in plenty or live in want. What Paul is telling us about reining in our finances is that contentment is not circumstantial. Contentment has nothing to do with how much is in our bank account, how much is in our pantry, how much is on our table. Being content it has nothing to do with what's happening or what's going to happen. He says, whether I'm in want or whether I've got provision for today, I'm content. You know how he knows that? Because he can do all things. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. You see how this stuff's connected? These passages, they're not just individuals that go into fortune cookies, on their own. They're all connected. He says, look, I know how to be content because it's not circumstantial, and I know that because Jesus Christ is all I need at any time, and he is sufficient. Doesn't he say, my grace is sufficient for you? So I'm content whether in plenty or in want, whether well-fed or hungry, whether God takes this thorn out of my side or not, whether this happens or that. I am content because Jesus is sufficient. I mean, when you read passages like don't worry about what you will eat or what you will drink. Don't worry about what you will wear, what you'll do. I mean, don't those passages make no sense in the context of our lives right now? Don't worry about what you're going to eat or what you're going to drink. Don't worry about what you're going to wear. Well, got to eat. I can't walk around naked. So what is he talking about? He's saying, look, understand that, yeah, you can have something to eat and you can have something to wear, but what you get caught up in is it, what does it taste like? Well, who cares what it tastes like? It's just about sustenance because Jesus, my existence within the person of Jesus is all that I'm concerned with, and the rest of this is just supporting my life. But what we do when we get caught up in all these things, remember what he's talking about? Don't muddy the waters. Remember 1 Timothy? People get caught up in this controversy or that argument of words or this stuff. We get caught up when it comes to eating. Well, where are we going to eat? And what is it going to be? And how's it going to taste? And it's like we get so caught up in all of that. You know why we eat? So we don't starve. But you know what our culture's done? We've made eating a status symbol. We've made eating certain places. I mean, think about some place. I mean, you're going to have a reservation to go there. Because that's nice. And I'm preaching to myself. I do the exact same. I know how ridiculous it is to go and to spend that kind of money on just a meal that's going to be gone in a day, but that's what we do. Because we have created this big society that's all about competition. Remember what we talked about at the very beginning? It's all about competition. Hey, have you ever eaten at someone's? Oh, you got to go. You got to try I mentioned the bisque. I mean, you got to, and don't get me started on clothing. I mean, Douglas, do I have to tell you about the Lulus again? Guys, let me tell you, I had a wreck where I broke 3 vertebrae and a concussion and had 15 stitches in my face. I don't know if y'all remember that last year. And you know what they have to do whenever they put you in the back of an ambulance to go to the hospital when you're bleeding out of your face and you can't really feel your legs very well and you can't walk and all? You know what they have to do? They cut your clothes off of you. Not these pants. I'm laying there on the gurney, and they're like, sir, we got to cut these pants off you. And I remember, no, those are my Lululemon pants. I'm like, no, you ain't cutting these off. No, they got the scissors. I'm moving my feet all around. I get back to the hospital. I get in the hospital, like, oh, we're going to have to take these pants off. I'm like, no, you're not. I mean, I'm risking my, over a pair of breeches. They are comfy, though. But we get so hung up on that stuff. We get so caught up on all of those things. Why? Because it's a giant competition. It's a giant competition. And I can gloss over and say, whatever I want, but at the end of the day, you can get these exact same pants that feel the exact same way for half the price, but they don't have that little Lululemon guy on the back of them. And you can get them at Costco. And then I have to tell everybody I'm wearing Costco pants. It's funny, right? but we're all poisoned by the exact same thing. That's why when it comes to generosity, the church is traditionally irrelevant, because we can laugh about the preacher wearing a $120 pair of pants. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, but that's where we're at. He says, I've learned to be content. You see, the contentment, whether I've got plenty, whether I have nothing, because to be honest with you, I'm just excited about Jesus. That's the life we're trying to get to. I'm not worried about any of it, because I'm just so excited about Jesus. I wake up every morning just so excited about Jesus. Remember we talked about a few weeks ago the depth and the breadth of what actual sin is? I mean, it's so deep, we can't even define it. We could not list it if we tried, and Jesus takes care of all that. Can we wake up in the morning just so excited about Jesus that, lunch plans or clothes, whatever he talks about, is that it's just so secondary? I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Contentment, he says, look, it's all about what I've learned. It's about being content. The secret is it doesn't have anything to do with our circumstances, and it's not this thing to be achieved, because you can be content right now, right here, not later. And see, the lie is this if-then statement. I will be content. If this happens, then I will be content. That's what we do. We put all kinds of guardrails on our contentment, is that we have this goal out there, that once I get to this, then everything's going to. What Paul understood was that the horizon just keeps moving. The horizon will continue to move as long as we are thinking about it in those terms. As far as our time, what we're going to do is we're going to put a pin in that right there, and I'm going to circle back to some of these other points next week. You see what I did there with the old political this and that? That's what we do. Isn't it ridiculous how life has just turned into that and that alone? I mean, if we want to give people, if we want to be a relevant church, you know what we can do? We can give people something else to think about. Give people something else to give their lives to, other than the moving goalpost of whatever political party is lying to us at the time. Can we learn to be content? Can we learn? Because here's the thing that I fear more than anything else, is that the church will move further and further and further into obscurity as an organization, because we get more and more captured by what's going on around us, and we are no longer pilgrims, we're no longer sojourners that are doing this life so differently than everyone else that it draws the attention of folks not in Christ. I'm afraid that we'll just keep holding hands with the world and get further and further away from, or we'll drift further and further into obscurity and do less and less. I mean, if you think about the church now, I mean, last week we talked about, was that last week we talked about Ralph Blake? Where are the people now that are starting churches in their basement? Where's the generation now that are building buildings or paying off? I mean, think about this. When it comes to being content, or can we be a kind of people that are content enough in our own lives to where we're not striving after more and more personal, but that we're doing more and more collectively? I mean, wouldn't it be nice if we could pay off this building? Let me ask you a question. Which one of our elders knows exactly what we pay in monthly? Oh, Tammy, she's an eldress. Sorry. What's our house payment here every month? $9,000 a month is our house payment here. Do you know what that does in Honduras for people that live in adobe huts still, as we all go home to our beautiful homes? And there are people that love the Lord just as much as we do that are living with no running water in adobe huts. You know what adobe is? Mud. Dirt homes. You know what we can do with $9,000 a month, Douglas? That's 9 houses. We could get people off of dirt floors 9 times a month. If we could just pay this thing off. If we could just do, you know what we could do if as individuals we were content and as a collective we were generous. It's not paying the preacher more. I mean, we probably need to pay the youth and family minister more. Let me just say that. But what could we do if we all learned contentment? And it's not the rich. It's not someone else. Don't wait for someone else to come along and do it, because we're all rich. Can we learn contentment this week? More is coming next week we're going to get into some more specifics, but we have to start learning what it's like to just be so excited about Jesus every morning that nothing else matters. Let's learn to be content as together we stand and sing.